Emily never wanted to be seen. Not really. She preferred it that way, moving silently through the corridors of Grayson Enterprises, managing executive schedules with precision, fixing others' mistakes without asking for credit. She wore muted clothes and walked like a shadow, blending into the background. No one remembered her name, but they all relied on her. She was the type of person who held things together without being noticed. But silence doesn't pay hospital bills. Her mother's condition had worsened. The hospital required an upfront payment. She needed money, fast and more than any assistant's salary could provide. When the offer came, it felt less like a lifeline and more like a test of her soul. Marcus Grayson, the CEO, was known for being ruthless, brilliant, and emotionally vacant. His recent divorce had caused speculation in the media, and with a multi-billion-dollar merger looming, he needed stability. A family. Not a real one, just the image. A woman who could stand beside him in public, play the role, and sign on the dotted line. No love, no expectations. Emily was the safest option. She wasn't interested in power. She wasn't a socialite. She was invisible, and that made her perfect. They met in his office. He didn't offer a greeting, just slid the contract across the desk. 5 pages. 1 year. A generous compensation plan. A clause about discretion. Another about non-interference in his private affairs. She stared at the paper while the clock ticked loudly in the silence. "I need this to look real," he said, not looking up from his phone. "You'll be well compensated." Her hands trembled. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was a transaction. But when she thought of her mother lying in that hospital bed, she signed. No questions. No hesitation. The wedding was handled by assistants and lawyers. No vows. No photos. Just signatures and a legal formality. Within 24 hours, she had a new title, Mrs. Emily Grayson. The mansion was colder than she imagined. Modern, sleek, lifeless. Everything was in its place, except the people who were supposed to live in it. Marcus vanished into his home office, while Emily was left to wander hallways that echoed with silence. She unpacked one small suitcase into a massive walk-in closet that smelled of cedar and absinthe. Then came the girl. Lily Grayson was 7, sharp-eyed and oddly quiet for a child. When the maid introduced Emily as Mrs. Grayson, the girl didn't blink. She walked over, studied Emily with a surgeon's intensity, then tilted her head and said, "Hi, Mom." Emily froze. Marcus looked up from across the room, startled. "Lily, she's not." But the girl didn't let him finish. She took Emily's hand and repeated it. "Mom." No hesitation. No confusion. Emily didn't know what to say. Her instinct was to correct the child, to explain. But something in Lily's eyes stopped her. It wasn't delusion. It wasn't fantasy. It was recognition. The kind that went deeper than logic. Later that night, Marcus pulled Emily aside. "She's never done that before," he said, more unnerved than angry. "Don't encourage it." Emily only nodded. But something had changed. In Lily's eyes, she wasn't invisible. She wasn't just a placeholder. She was something real. And for the first time in years, someone had seen her, without her needing to be loud, flashy, or perfect. It unsettled her more than she expected. But it also lit something inside her. Something she didn't know was still there. Emily adjusted quickly. She always did. The mansion wasn't a home, just a collection of expensive surfaces and empty rooms. She moved through it with quiet efficiency, fixing loose cabinet hinges, reorganizing forgotten closets, noticing details others missed. No one asked her to. No one thanked her. But that was fine. She wasn't here for gratitude. Lily followed her everywhere. The girl barely spoke, but her eyes absorbed everything. Emily didn't ask questions. She simply listened. When Lily described her favorite bedtime stories, her dislike of the cook's food, the way her real mother used to brush her hair. Emily nodded, offered small smiles, and tucked those details away like secrets. Marcus remained distant. He left early, returned late, spoke little. But when Emily passed him reports corrected with subtle suggestions, about a client's mood, a phrasing in a press release, he began to hesitate before discarding them. Once, he even used one of her notes in a board meeting. He never said thank you, but she noticed the shift. She started spotting patterns. Numbers that didn't add up. Meetings that ended too conveniently. A senior executive always lingering where he didn't belong. Emily had seen fraud before, but this felt different. Smarter, buried under layers of trust. She said nothing. She watched. She documented. Lily handed her a drawing one evening. A sketch of the office, oddly detailed, with names labeled around a long table. One of the names had a red circle around it, Mr. Hanley. CFO. Trusted by Marcus for years. Emily froze. Why this one? She asked. He lies when he smiles, Lily said. Emily didn't question it. She had noticed the same thing. A minor press leak happened the next week. A sensitive internal memo found its way to the media. Panic spread through the executive team. Marcus was furious. Emily, silent in the background, recognized the memo's phrasing. It had passed through Hanley's department. A single word choice gave it away. She flagged it quietly, left it on Marcus's desk, unsigned. He didn't speak to her for 2 days. Then, without warning, handed her a folder. Review this, he said. It was a set of internal audit documents. Not her job. Not her problem. But he gave it to her anyway. She worked through the night, finding discrepancies buried under carefully staged transactions. Hanley was bleeding the company in increments, slow enough to avoid detection, smart enough to blame someone else if caught. Emily wrote it all down. Clear. Clean. Unemotional. By morning, Marcus looked at her differently. You always see this much? He asked. Only when no one else is looking, she said. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. The staff in the mansion began to notice her. The maids started asking her advice. The driver confided in her about scheduling issues. Not because of her title, but because she listened and because she remembered. She fixed things, quietly, without demanding attention. Lily hugged her goodnight one evening and whispered, "Daddy listens to you now." Emily didn't respond. She was too focused on the storm she saw coming. Emily tracked the numbers like a bloodhound. Each report, each transfer, each email, subtle shifts pointed to a deliberate pattern. Hanley was careful, but not perfect. He moved money through minor vendor accounts, doctored just enough data to keep quarterly reviews clean. Most people wouldn't notice. Emily did. Marcus began forwarding her internal documents. No commentary. Just silent trust. He never admitted she was his ally, but his actions said enough. Emily didn't need validation. She needed result. One night, Lily wandered into the study carrying a crumpled piece of paper. A child's drawing again. Only this time it showed 2 stick figures standing far apart, with one hiding behind a stack of money. Scribbled in shaky letters, "He's watching." Emily's heart jumped. Who? Lily pointed to the figure behind the money. The one with the fake smile. Emily looked closer. The figure was labeled Mr. H. The pieces snapped into place. Hanley wasn't just stealing. He was sabotaging. The failed merger pitch from 2 weeks ago, the strange delay in legal approvals, the missing documents, all had passed through his office. She stayed up, stitching the timeline together. The sabotage was surgical. Slow enough to avoid suspicion, targeted enough to make Marcus look incompetent if it failed. If the deal collapsed, the board would panic. Hanley had positioned himself as the safe alternative. Emily handed Marcus a compiled report the next morning. No emotion. Just facts. Evidence. Motive. He read it twice. If this is true, he said quietly, he's not just stealing. He's setting me up. Emily nodded. He stared at her. Why are you the one seeing this? Because I'm the one no one watches, she said. The silence between them shifted. Not tension, recognition. The next day, Hanley confronted her. calm, smiling, like a man who knew too much. "You've been active lately," he said. "Just remember your place." Emily held his stare. "I never left it." That night, someone tampered with her files. A digital footprint tried to erase her audit trail. But she had backups. Paper. Offline. She'd grown up in chaos. She didn't trust appearances. She handed Marcus a sealed envelope. "If anything happens to me, give this to the board." He didn't ask what was inside. The trap was ready. At the quarterly board meeting, Emily watched from the back. Hanley made his move, subtle undermining framed as concern. Marcus waited, silent, then dropped the full audit. The room went dead. Directors flipped pages. Questions flew. Hanley's confidence cracked. When the legal team confirmed the data trail, the board turned. Termination. Investigation. Silence. Afterward, Marcus looked for Emily. She was already gone, back in the car with Lily. No need to stay. Lily leaned on her shoulder. "You fixed it." "No," Emily said. "I just noticed what others ignored." And for the first time, she believed that mattered. Marcus didn't speak for a full day after the board meeting. When he finally found Emily in the garden, she was trimming dead leaves from a plant no one noticed. He stood there for a moment, watching her, as if realizing he'd misread her entirely. "You saved everything," he said. "No," she replied. "I prevented a collapse. There's a difference." He nodded slowly. "I underestimated you. Everyone did." From that day things changed. Subtly. Emily was no longer background noise. Marcus involved her in strategy meetings, not just paperwork. When board members asked questions, he deferred to her. The executive team noticed. They watched her differently now. She hadn't demanded power, she'd earned respect through quiet precision. Investors, once on edge, stabilized. The merger moved forward. Emily's insights weren't just accurate, they were essential. She wasn't pretending to be part of the family anymore. She was the one holding it together. Lily grew bolder. Happier. She'd run to Emily with schoolwork, jokes, new words. One evening, during a quiet dinner, she looked up and asked, "Can I call you Mom again?" Emily froze. Marcus waited. "Yes," she said, voice steady. "You can." Marcus didn't say anything, but his expression cracked for the first time, something raw, unguarded. He didn't just admire her now. He needed her, and not in the way the contract had outlined. The contract ended quietly. No ceremony. Just a paper shredder and an unspoken agreement that whatever this was, it had outgrown business terms. Months passed. Emily's role became official, special advisor to the CEO. But everyone knew titles didn't matter. When she spoke, people listened. She trained new staff, reviewed proposals, noticed the details others skipped. She led without spotlight. One afternoon, during a shareholder meeting, Marcus paused his speech and introduced her. Not as his advisor. Not as his wife. Just by name. The person who saw what the rest of us didn't. The reason we're still standing. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just nodded. Afterward, an intern asked her how she'd learned to lead without leading. "I watched. I listened. I showed up when no one else did," she said. "You don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to be right when it matters." That night at home, Lily curled up beside her and whispered, "You're not like other moms." Emily smiled. "Neither are you." Invisibility had been her armor. Now it was her strength. She hadn't needed power to be powerful. Just the courage to stay sharp when no one was watching, and the clarity to know exactly who she was, even when others didn't. 3 years later, no one remembered that Emily had once been invisible. Under her quiet influence, the company's culture shifted. Meetings started on time. Decisions were sharper. People listened better, because now they paid attention to the quiet ones, the overlooked ones. Emily had become the model, not the exception. She never asked for credit, but she became the person others consulted before moving forward. Not just Marcus. Everyone. Her insight saved money. Her instincts saved face. Her silence carried weight. The leadership initiative had been her idea. A program for internal staff, assistants, janitors, interns, people buried under noise. She handpicked them, trained them, taught them how to see. Not how to speak louder. How to notice what mattered. One of them, a receptionist turned analyst, called her the quiet engine of the company. She didn't correct him. He wasn't wrong. Marcus changed too. The edges softened. His emails were less clipped. He didn't vanish behind closed doors anymore. And every evening, without fail, he sat down for dinner, with her and Lily, no phone, no distractions. Lily had grown, but she still drew pictures. One night, she left one on Emily's desk. 3 figures, holding hands. The caption, in uneven handwriting, read, "My forever family." Emily stared at it longer than she meant to. Later that night, Marcus found her sitting in the study, light spilling across the paper. He sat beside her, said nothing for a moment, then asked, "Do you regret it? How it started?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "No. Because I didn't lose myself in it. I found myself through it." He nodded. "You taught me how to see again." She looked at him. "And I didn't even raise my voice. No applause. No spotlight. Just steady change. From assistant to advisor. From placeholder to partner. From stranger to mother." Emily had never needed to be the loudest in the room. She only needed the room to finally look up and realize she'd been the one holding it together all along. The scandal finally broke, years after the audit. A competitor exposed a shell company tied to old Grayson contracts, traced back to the Hanley era. Media swarmed. Stock dipped. Analysts predicted a fall. Marcus remained calm. Emily went to work. While others panicked, she reconstructed timelines, pulled archived records, contacted former staff, and pieced together a narrative no one else could. She wasn't protecting the company's image. She was protecting its integrity. The difference mattered. She found the signature. A forged approval slipped into a dormant file months before Hanley's exit. The timing was deliberate. He'd planted it to detonate long after he was gone. But Emily had kept a scanned original in a private archive. One missing dot in a signature gave it away. She presented the evidence to legal, to PR, and to Marcus in a single-page brief. No panic. Just clarity. They released a statement the next morning. Transparent. Sharp. Unapologetic. The media pivoted. Headlines shifted from scandal to resilience. Shareholders stabilized. And Marcus, during the next press conference, answered only 2 questions before stepping aside. "She'll take it from here," he said. "She always does." Emily stepped forward. Calm. Measured. Precise. She outlined the facts, corrected the record, then walked off stage before the applause even started. Later, the board voted her onto the executive committee. One of them called it overdue. Another called her the company's spine. She declined the title. "I don't need a louder seat," she said. "I need the right view." At home, Lily watched the press conference replay on the tablet. "You looked like a real boss," she said. Emily smirked. "I looked like myself." She walked into that house years ago for money. Now, no contract bound her. No spotlight claimed her. She led from the edges, influenced from the quiet, and anchored everything with the strength of someone who'd been ignored, and chose to build instead of break. People now used her name in meetings, in strategy decks, in leadership talk. But she didn't need to hear it. Because the ones who once overlooked her now paused before every decision and asked themselves, *, what would Emily notice? *. And that was enough.